The PIC bailout of Daybreak Farms came under the spotlight today at the inquiry into the state asset manager. Rohit Rajda, a former Daybreak non-executive board member and PIC employee, says he believed Daybreak had prospect and would turn its fortunes around. Many are questioning the value of the poultry company. The PIC bailed it out when it was close to shutting its doors. Our reporter Heidi Jakos has been following the inquiry. Heidi, live for us in the newsroom this hour. Heidi, so just how deep does the scandal run on this angle of the story?
Quite deep, Tembekile. You must remember that the PIC has various investments, and most of it is on behalf of government employees' pension funds. And today the Commission of Inquiry heard about the investment into Daybreak Farms by the PIC. But what is very important about this specific investment is the fact that it was basically insolvent when the PIC decided that it's going to invest into the specific company. It also came at a time when the poultry industry was not doing too well. There was a drought at the time. There was also an outbreak of avian flu. But despite all of these issues, the PIC pushed on and said it wants to invest into this company. I mean, some of the remarks that we were hearing from the Commission today was the fact that it appears as though the PIC was pushing for this investment because of the person that applied for the acquisition. One would question, why would the PIC invest 1.2 billion rand into a company that has so much debt, that's basically insolvent? But the PIC said it had done in-depth analysis, it had done in-depth research, and it decided that it made sense for it to invest into this specific company.
We've heard much detail about particular individuals, the like of the former PIC boss Dan Machila, who were accused of pushing for particular investments that were irregular. Do we know who was behind the Daybreak one?
No, so we just know that it was a specific individual that had approached the PIC for that. One would think that perhaps the name of Dan Machila would be brought up, given the fact that in almost every single investment that the Commission is looking into, it would be perhaps being pushed by Dan Machila. But in this case, it wasn't necessarily. But it is important to note that the PIC's team, the investment team, the team that does due diligence on any kind of investment, pushed for that investment to take place. And it's very important to note that it's a company that was bankrupt. It had no money, it was struggling to stay afloat, and it was literally on the brink of closure. So the fact that the PIC invested in that, I think the Commission is trying to understand that it is an investment that I must say that many journalists covering this Commission have grappled to come to terms with, because it's one that hasn't been spoken about much. It's one that very little information is on, but it was a farm that was about to close down, and the PIC said, let's come in, let's invest the money and actually see what we can do with it. But the big question is why? Why did the PIC pick this specific poultry farm to basically invest in?
The question of why, Heidi, ties in with the broader idea of the themes that we've seen come up time and time again in the evidence presented by various people there. Perhaps right now actually is the best time to just reflect on the similarities between the different sort of investments, the individuals, and where we are at this juncture.
Exactly, and the similarities that we've picked up is the fact that there seems to be some kind of overvaluation of companies before the PIC lists into them, before they list on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. For example, yesterday we heard from Malik Sally, who was the former Chief Investment Officer of AO Technology Solutions, where he said that there was a major overvaluation of the company before it listed on the JSE in December of 2017, and this was pushed by Iqbal Survey, who's said to have a hand in this specific company. I mean, he pushed the valuation of the company to over 10 billion rand. It was only supposed to be valued at 5 billion rand. It was valued at 15 billion rand at the end of the day. And then you have this situation where the Commission is questioning the valuation of Daybreak Farms because of the situation, the state that the company was in, the financial state that it was in. It had so much debt at the time, but the PIC valued it at 1.2 billion rand, investing that, which is basically on behalf of government government employees' pension funds. So that is something that's really a lot of similarities we've seen, but one specifically about the overvaluation, about how deals were pushed through Dan Machila's office because of the relationship that he supposedly had with the person bringing the deal to the table. Iqbal survey, we've heard as well, in other various investments where close relationships apparently have been built between Dan Machila and those bringing those deals to the table.
Rohit Rajda led through evidence today. Do we expect him to return? And when he does, should he return, what do we expect him to speak about?
I must mention that Roy Rajda has actually, it's about the third time that he's actually come to testify at this commission. And I think it's because of the position that he holds at the PIC and various positions that he's held in terms of being executive head of impact investing. He used to be a fund principal as well. So he's been involved in a number of investments. So he obviously sheds light on due diligence, the whole process around these investments. But he is expected to return next week. We're not sure of the date yet, but apparently he's going to speak on another investment that the PIC got involved in that's somehow linked to the very same person that brought the PIC deal, the Daybreak deal to the PIC. He's going to be speaking on SA home loans. So that should be interesting to see if that was any kind of dodgy investment and why that investment was done in the first place.
Heidi Jokos live for us in the ENCA newsroom. For now, thank you.